So I want you to imagine that you're standing right in the middle of this massive echoing school gym.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah, but you aren't alone in there. There's like an elephant, a mouse, a robin, a bat, a rattlesnake, a spider, and a mosquito in there with you.
Sounds like a pretty crowded gym.
Right. But here's the thing. You are all occupying the exact same physical space, but you are experiencing wildly, just wondrously different realities.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the mosquito isn't seeing the bright fluorescent lights or the painted lines on the floor. It's basically just zeroing in on the plume of carbon dioxide from your breath.
Right, and the rattlesnake is, it's perceiving the mouse's body heat blazing like this brilliant infrared beacon.
Exactly. And the spider is, well, practically deaf and blind by our standards, but its entire universe is just the tactile vibration of the silk web it's spun in the corner.
While the elephant is unleashing this thunderous, low-pitched rumble that you can't even hear.
But the mouse feels it trembling through the floorboards. It's just wild.
It really is. And it's a phenomenal thought experiment to introduce the foundational concept of our deep dive today, which is drawn from Ed Yong's brilliant work, An Immense World.
Such a good book.
Incredible source material. And that core concept is the Umwelt. It was coined by this Baltic German zoologist Jakob von Uexküll back in 1909.
Umwelt, yeah.
Yeah, and the Umwelt doesn't simply mean an animal's physical environment. It refers specifically to its perceptual world. It's like the bespoke slice of reality that an organism's specific sensory biology allows it to tap into.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because believing human perception is the whole truth is essentially like, well, it's like looking out a single tiny window of a massive, sprawling mansion.
Oh, I like that.
Right, and assuming that your one specific view, that single patch of grass, is the entire universe. We basically treat our human sensory bubble as the definitive performance of reality.
When in fact we are missing almost all of the play.
Exactly.
Which is why recognizing the limits of our own Umwelt is just so powerful for you as a listener. It acts as this cognitive magnifying glass. Yeah. The moment you understand what you cannot perceive, you uncover a much richer, deeper, and, infinitely more complex world operating right beneath your nose.
Literally beneath your nose.
Yeah.
Because to understand how deeply we misjudge reality, we kind of have to strip away our primary reliance on vision. We need to look at the oldest, most universal way life interacts with the world.
Which is chemistry.
Right, chemistry, smells and tastes. Because we are so relentlessly visual, we completely ignore these swirling, invisible chemical biographies that animals leave behind everywhere they go.
Oh yeah, like the domestic dog.
Yes. Take Finn, the black lab mix studied by researcher Alexandra Horowitz. Watching him navigate a room is like watching a time traveler.
A time traveler, yeah, that's the perfect way to describe it.
Because when Finn sniffs the floor, he isn't just smelling the present moment. He is reading the past, like determining who was sitting in a specific chair hours ago based on decaying odor plumes.
And predicting the future, too.
Exactly, like smelling the barometric and chemical shifts of an approaching storm well before the clouds even appear.
And, the biomechanics of how a dog achieves that are just a masterpiece of fluid dynamics.
Walk us through that because it's fascinating.
Well, when you or I breathe, the air we inhale uses the exact same pathway for respiration as it does for olfaction. It's a chaotic, shared system.
It's all just going down the same pipe.
Right, but dogs actually partition their nasal airflow. The majority of the air heads down to the lungs, sure, but a dedicated tributary zooms directly into a specialized olfactory recess at the back of the snout.
Wow.
Even more incredibly, when a dog exhales, the spent air exits through the side slits of their nostril.
Wait, really? The side slits?
Yeah. And this aerodynamic design creates these rotating vortices that actively kick up more scent molecules from the ground and waft them right back into the nose.
That is insane. So they are basically maintaining a continuous, uninterrupted conveyor belt of chemical data.
Exactly.
Now, I hear this all the time, this idea that human smell is practically vestigial, that we're functionally nose blind compared to the rest of the animal kingdom. But I don't buy it.
You don't?
No. I mean, I can smell rain coming before the first drop hits, or a specific bakery from 3 avenues away. Are we really that bad at it, or are we just judging ourselves unfairly against an animal with an incredibly specialized snout?
Well, you're actually spot on. The idea that humans are terrible smellers is a deeply entrenched scientific myth.
I knew it. Where did that even come from?
It traces back to the 19th century neuroscientist Paul Broca.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, so he observed that humans have a relatively small olfactory bulb compared to the immense volume of our frontal cortex.
Okay.
And he incorrectly assumed that a smaller anatomical ratio meant diminished biological function. He essentially categorized humans as non-smellers just to elevate our supposed higher intelligence and free will above base animal instincts.
So he literally just looked at the proportions and declared our noses useless.
Pretty much, yeah.
But behavioral tests show the exact opposite, right? I mean, Jess Porter ran that experiment where college students were blindfolded, given knee pads, and placed on all fours in a field.
Oh, the chocolate tracking one.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were able to successfully track a winding chocolate trail through the grass purely by sniffing.
Amazing.
And I think so much of our supposed blindness is just a cultural lack of vocabulary. Like in Western societies, we describe smells by referencing other things.
Right, like something smells like a rose or like smoke.
Exactly. But the Jahai people in Malaysia possess this incredibly rich, highly specific vocabulary dedicated entirely to abstract odors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they can identify and name a scent profile as instantly and precisely as you or I would name the color blue.
That really shows how much of the Umwelt is shaped by our attention to it. And when you scale up that chemical awareness, you realize that olfaction dictates not just individual tracking, but the architecture of entire societies.
Like ants, right?
Yes, consider the colonal raider ants. These insects are completely blind, but their antennae possess a staggering 500 distinct odorant receptors.
500.
Yeah. And the ants synthesize these heavy, complex pheromones and wear them on their exoskeletons like chemical identity badges.
Like a barcode made of smell.
Exactly. By simply tapping their antennae together, they are reading a nuanced syntax of chemical proportions that tells them, who belongs, what role they play, what the colony needs to do next.
The entire superorganism is literally glued together by smell.
And then researchers have proved this by genetically modifying a single ant to knock out its primary smelling gene.
Oh, that's wild. What happened?
Without olfaction, the ant just wanders aimlessly. It doesn't know how to feed, it abandons the colony, and it's entirely disconnected from its society. Smell is its only anchor to reality.
And this scales up to the largest land mammals, too. I mean, the African elephant has a trunk equipped with nearly 2,000 functional olfactory receptor genes.
Which is the most of any animal ever studied, by the way.
Yeah. They can read an odorscape so precisely that they can identify the scent of Maasai people who historically hunted them versus other local agricultural groups.
That is just unbelievable.
They will flee from an empty garment just based on the lingering chemical signature of a Maasai man. They can even track the precise trajectory of their family members across the savannah merely by sniffing the urine spots left along the trail.
And the spatial component there is really crucial, because smells aren't just localized clouds. They form vast, sprawling topographical maps.
Right.
Like for over a century, ornithologists were convinced that birds couldn't smell at all.
Which is so funny in retrospect.
Totally. And this originated from a flawed 1820s experiment by John James Audubon. He hid a heavily putrefying pig carcass under some brush, and when local vultures failed to find it, Audubon just declared, well, birds hunt entirely by sight.
He didn't account for the fact that turkey vultures actually prefer freshly killed meat, not ancient, rotting sludge.
Exactly.
It was a massive methodological failure that set the study of avian olfaction back decades.
Exactly the kind of human assumption that clouds our understanding of the Umwelt. But today, we know that seabirds, like the tube noses, which include albatrosses and petrels, they are absolute masters of chemical navigation.
Because they track that compound, right?
Oh.
Dimethyl sulfide, or DMS.
Right.
Classic scent of the sea.
Yeah, that smell. When microscopic phytoplankton are being grazed upon by krill, they release DMS into the air.
Okay.
So to us, the open ocean looks like a featureless, terrifying expanse of blue water. But to an albatross, the air is this rolling, dynamic prairie of chemical mountains and valleys.
And they just ride these invisible DMS plumes for thousands of miles to locate the densest aggregations of krill.
It's incredible.
But wait, if smell is reading these complex airborne molecules over vast distances, what is the actual biological distinction between smell and taste? We tend to just lump them together as chemical sensing.
Yeah, it's a good question. The distinction really lies in both distance and nuance. Olfaction can detect an almost infinite variety of volatile molecules drifting through the air or water from miles away.
Okay, and taste?
Taste is a context sense. It relies on a much smaller set of receptors designed for an immediate, critical, and usually binary decision.
Like, is this caloric and safe to swallow, or is it toxic and needs to be spat out?
Exactly. Which brings us to the undisputed king of taste, the catfish.
Oh, I love the catfish example. It is such a brilliant biological adaptation.
It really is. A catfish is essentially just a giant swimming tongue.
Yeah, it doesn't restrict its taste buds to the inside of its mouth. Its entire body, from its barbels to its tail fin, is paved with them.
Paved with taste buds. That's a gross but accurate image.
Right. It is constantly tasting the water in every direction to pinpoint the concentration gradients of amino acids leaking from prey hidden in the mud.
And the bizarre reality of that anatomy is, if you ever touch a catfish...
It is simultaneously tasting your hand.
Exactly.
So weird. But, okay, if chemistry allows an animal to read the localized history and topography of an environment, light allows an organism to interact with the world instantaneously across vast distances.
Right, vision.
Yes, but our human biases are incredibly strong here. We assume that seeing requires synthesizing a cohesive, forward-facing, high-definition movie of our surroundings.
Which is very human-centric.
Completely. If we deconstruct how other animals process light, that assumption falls apart completely. Look at the jumping spider.
Oh, Elizabeth Jacobs' research on jumping spiders perfectly illustrates how visual labor can be divided.
Right, because the human brain dedicates massive computational power to blending sharp focus, color detection, and peripheral motion tracking into one seamless visual feed.
Yeah, but a jumping spider has a brain the size of a poppy seed. It cannot afford that computational load, so it outsources the processing to specialized hardware.
It physically divides the tasks among its 8 eyes.
It's so cool.
It has 2 large principal eyes in the center of its face. These have phenomenal spatial resolution and color vision. They are shaped like long tubes inside its head and can swivel around like internal flashlights to inspect details.
But their field of view is incredibly narrow.
Right, so they rely on the secondary eyes positioned on the sides of the spider's head, which are blurry but highly sensitive to motion.
And here's the crazy part. If you temporarily cover a jumping spider's secondary eyes, a fly can buzz right in front of its face and the spider won't even react.
Wait, really? Because it can't see the motion.
Exactly. The principal eyes have the resolution to see the fly, but without the motion-detecting eyes triggering the reflex to tell the principal eyes where to look, the spider is effectively blind to the event.
That is fascinating. We constantly project our own visual acuity, our ability to resolve fine spatial detail onto other animals.
We really do. And human acuity is actually exceptionally sharp compared to the vast majority of the animal kingdom.
Right.
Which leads to profound ecological misunderstandings, like the persistent theory regarding zebra camouflage.
Oh, that is the perfect example. The prevailing narrative is that zebras evolved black and white stripes to create an optical illusion, dazzling and confusing lions or hyenas on the savannah.
Yeah, but researchers Amanda Mellon and Tim Caro rigorously tested this by analyzing the specific optics and visual cortex capabilities of predators.
And what did they find?
Well, humans can easily resolve the distinct high-contrast stripes of a zebra from hundreds of yards away. But a lion's visual acuity is significantly lower. Its eyes are built for maximizing light in the dark, not for sharp daytime resolution.
Okay, so what does the lion actually see?
From the distance at which a lion actually initiates its predatory stalk, the spatial frequency of those stripes completely exceeds the resolving power of the lion's eyes.
So they just blur together.
Yes. The black and white simply blur together into a uniform grayish-brown smudge. To a hunting lion, a zebra looks indistinguishable from a donkey.
Wow. So the stripes do not camouflage the zebra from predators at all.
Nope. We have just been evaluating their evolutionary purpose through the wrong set of eyes.
We just assume seeing requires a picture. But then you encounter the scallop.
The scallop is mind-blowing.
We usually only see them seared on a plate, right? But the living bivalve has up to 200 eyes lining the mantle of its shell.
200.
And they are staggeringly complex. They possess double retinas and utilize microscopic square crystals of guanine that act as mirrors to focus incoming light.
Kind of like the mirrors in a reflecting telescope.
Exactly. Yet the scallop has essentially no central brain.
Right, it lacks the neural architecture to stitch the inputs from those 200 eyes into an actual image. It isn't watching a movie of the reef.
It's more like a security guard sitting in a room with 200 monitors, but none of the screens show a video feed.
That's a great analogy.
There are just blank screens with a single red warning light that flashes when a change in contrast or sudden motion is detected.
So the scallop knows a shadow has passed over it, maybe a predatory sea star, but it has absolutely no spatial picture of what the threat looks like.
It just receives the binary command to snap its shell shut.
And the brittle star takes this even further.
Oh, right.
Its entire spiny skeleton acts acts as a massive, continuous compound eye, but it only functions directionally during the day.
Wait, why only during the day?
Because as the sun rises, these microscopic pigment sacs within its skin expand. They physically shield the photoreceptors to create the contrast needed to detect the angle of incoming light.
Oh, wow.
At night, those sacs shrink, and it loses its spatial vision entirely.
It perfectly highlights that vision doesn't require a cohesive scene. It simply requires actionable biological information, which leads us directly to the assumption of where an animal should look.
Right. Because humans have forward-facing eyes with a high degree of overlap, we get binocular depth perception, so we just assume that optimal visual field is directly in front of us.
But a mallard duck floating on a pond has eyes positioned perfectly on the sides of its head.
Which is wild.
Without moving a single neck muscle, that duck has a complete 360-degree panoramic view of the sky and the horizon. It can literally see the world moving toward its beak and away from its tail simultaneously.
Conversely, examine the visual field of the griffon vulture. You would hypothesize that a massive bird soaring at high altitudes, actively scanning for terrestrial carcasses, would possess impeccable forward vision, right?
Yeah, to avoid aerial obstacles.
However, the anatomy of the retinas dictates otherwise. Their foci, the zones of sharpest visual acuity, are positioned such that they must look downward at the ground or sideways to process high-resolution details.
Which creates a massive, literal blind spot directly in front of their beaks while they're in forward flight.
Exactly.
And this perfectly explains the tragic phenomena of these birds flying straight into the massive blades of wind turbines. They possess some of the sharpest eyes on the planet, but they literally do not see the turbine coming because their biological hardware isn't designed to look straight ahead while hunting.
And we really must recognize that vision isn't just about navigating physical space. It is deeply tied to the perception of time.
The killer fly is a phenomenal example of this. It is this tiny predatory insect that can launch from a leaf, intercept a flying target in midair, and return to its perch in the time it takes a human being to blink.
Its neural processing speed is almost incomprehensible. It's measured by a metric called the flicker fusion frequency. Think of flicker fusion frequency as the frame rate of an animal's visual Umwelt. It dictates how quickly their photoreceptors can capture light, send the signal to the brain, reset, and capture the next pulse of light.
Okay, so what's the human frame rate?
The human visual system processes roughly 60 frames per second. The killer fly's photoreceptors are firing and resetting at well over 300 frames per second.
Which means the speed of sight is entirely relative.
Totally relative.
To a killer fly, human movements don't look fast or threatening. They look like slow-motion Tai Chi. To try to swat one with your hand, from the fly's perspective, you're a lumbering giant moving through thick molasses.
And just as the speed of light processing varies, so does the physical scale of the eyes themselves. This is driven by extreme environmental pressures.
Oh, like in the deep ocean.
Yes. If you dive into the abyssal zones of the ocean where sunlight cannot penetrate, you find the giant squid. It possesses eyes the size of soccer balls.
Soccer balls.
Yeah. And it seems like a massive waste of metabolic energy to build an eye that large in a pitch-black environment.
So why do they have them?
Well, the visual ecologist Sunka Johnson analyzed the optics of the deep ocean. He discovered that eyes of that magnitude actually hit a wall of diminishing returns for general vision.
Oh, so they aren't scanning the dark for everyday shape.
No, they are engineered for one highly specific life or death optical task. A pupil that massive is the exact mathematical size required to detect the faint, glowing, bioluminescent wake triggered by a charging sperm whale.
The squid's primary predator.
Right, and they can see that faint glow from about 130 yards away. That single terrifying threat sculpted their entire visual apparatus.
So eyes dictate the frame rate, the acuity, and the focal points of an animal's reality. But we need to explore the actual palette of the world.
Colors.
Yes. There is a deeply ingrained assumption that color is an objective physical property of the universe, but it isn't. The sky isn't inherently blue, and a leaf isn't inherently green. Color is a subjective biological illusion.
Precisely. Light exists merely as a spectrum of electromagnetic wavelengths. The sensation of color is constructed entirely by specialized proteins in the retina called opsins.
Opsins, right.
Yeah, when a specific wavelength of light strikes an opsin, the protein physically changes its shape. This triggers a biochemical phototransduction cascade that sends an electrical signal to the brain.
And then the brain interprets that.
Exactly. The brain compares the signals from different types of opsin cones to hallucinate a color. Most mammals, for instance, are dichromats, meaning they possess only two types of cone cells.
Like the famous laboratory dog, Retina, studied by J. Neitz. That completely shatters the old myth that dogs view the world in black and white static.
They aren't monochromatic at all.
No, their two cones simply render the world in a palette of blues and yellows. To a dog, a bright red fire hydrant likely appears as a muddy dark yellow.
But millions of years ago, the primate lineage experienced a fortuitous genetic duplication and a slight structural shift in an opsin gene.
Giving us a third cone?
Right, granting our ancestors a third cone. This trichromacy suddenly caused the world to explode with reds and greens.
And that evolutionary upgrade provided a massive foraging advantage. It allowed early primates to effortlessly break the camouflage of the jungle canopy, spotting ripe red fruits and young, nutritious reddish leaves against a chaotic background of mature green foliage.
But we shouldn't let our primate trichromacy go to our heads.
No, definitely not.
Because in the broader context of the animal kingdom, human vision is remarkably deficient. We are entirely blind to ultraviolet light, a wavelength that practically coats the natural world.
It really does. To our eyes, a sunflower is a uniform, aesthetically pleasing yellow disc. But to a foraging bee, which possesses UV-sensitive opsins, that same sunflower displays a massive glowing UV bullseye that points directly to the nectar source.
And ultraviolet is frequently utilized as a secure, private communication channel in nature.
Oh, like the swordtail fish?
Exactly. The swordtail fish displays vivid UV stripes along its flanks to signal genetic fitness and attract mates.
And their predators can't see it.
Right. The predatory fish that share their waters are completely blind to the ultraviolet spectrum. The swordtails are essentially shouting their attractiveness in a visual frequency. Their predators lack the biological antenna to intercept.
So if our three cones allow us to perceive millions of distinct color variations, I can't even fathom what the computational math looks like for animals with even more receptors, like birds.
Birds are tetrachromats. They possess 4 distinct cones, including one for UV.
Do they just see a wider rainbow, or is the experience fundamentally different?
Oh, it is a fundamental expansion of dimensionality. Having a 4th cone doesn't merely extend the visible spectrum at the edges, it generates entirely new combinations called non-spectral colors.
Non-spectral colors.
Yeah, these are colors that do not exist as a single pure wavelength of light. They are perceived when the brain blends widely separated wavelengths.
Just like human brains mix red and blue light to hallucinate the color purple, which doesn't actually exist on the standard light spectrum.
Exactly. And because birds can perceive UV, they have access to a cocktail of non-spectral colors we cannot even conceptualize.
I love this part. The evolutionary biologist Cassie Stoddard, who researches broad-tailed hummingbirds, coined the best terminology for these alien hues.
The names are so good.
UV mixed with red creates ripple.
Purple.
Yeah. UV blended with green is grurple. UV and yellow make yerple. Hummingbirds navigate their feeding grounds using these vibrant, invisible shades.
And Adriana Briscoe's research on Arado butterflies in the rainforest showed that females actively use the color yerple to distinguish their own species from toxic mimics fluttering nearby.
To take that further, the sexual dimorphism in that species is visually profound. The male Arado butterflies are actually trichromats. They completely lack the opsin required to see yerple. It is a vital dimension of color that exists exclusively for the females of the species.
Which naturally leads us to the ultimate paradox of animal vision, the mantis shrimp.
The heavyweight champion of eyes.
Yeah, it's this marine crustacean with eyes mounted on independent stalks that roam around like radar dishes.
And it possesses an absurd 12 distinct photoreceptors for color, plus 6 additional receptors dedicated to polarization, including circular polarization, which is a spiraling light wave that essentially no other animal can detect.
So the logical assumption is that a mantis shrimp looking at a coral reef must be experiencing a thermonuclear explosion of psychedelic color.
Right.
And that was the governing hypothesis in marine biology for years. But behavioral testing revealed a shocking twist.
And what's that?
Despite having 12 color cones, mantis shrimp are actually terrible at distinguishing between similar shades of color. They fail discrimination tests that humans and even bees pass with ease.
Wait, how does an animal with 4 times as many color receptors as a human see color worse?
It comes down to computational efficiency. Human brains perform complex, antagonistic neural math, comparing the exact stimulation levels of our 3 cones to pinpoint a specific hue.
Which takes a lot of brain power.
That processing takes time and massive brain power, yeah. The mantis shrimp bypasses the brain's processing almost entirely. It uses its 12 receptors less like a painter's palette and more like a supermarket barcode scanner.
So it just sweeps its eyes over a target.
Exactly. If receptors 3, 6, 10, and 11 fire a signal, the nervous system bypasses the nuanced math and simply registers that pattern equals a crab. Punch it.
They sacrifice the rich, comparative nuance of color for the sheer, brutal speed of raw processing, allowing them to unleash their underwater strike at 50 miles per hour.
And if we look at the biology of how these sensory systems function, it leads to what is perhaps the most profound realization of our entire deep dive.
Which is?
When you admire the neon warning colors of a poison dart frog, the intricate blue and yellow patterns of a reef fish, or the vivid UV bullseye of a blooming flower, you have to realize those visual displays did not happen by random physical accident.
They evolved specifically to catch the precise opsons of the animals looking at them.
Yes. Senses are not just passive receivers of environmental data. The evolutionary arms race of perception actively sculpted the appearance of life on Earth.
Wow.
Eyes are literally the living paintbrushes that colored the natural world.
Living paintbrushes. I love that. From the fluid dynamics of a dog's nose pulling time out of the air, to the killer fly living in an entirely different biological frame rate, to the yerple and grupple skies of the hummingbird stepping out of our own cairn, Umwelt is an incredibly humbling experience.
It really is.
It shatters our sensory arrogance and replaces it with a deep, empathetic appreciation for the immense overlapping realities that are occurring simultaneously right outside our front doors.
And as we close, I think it's important to consider the modern implications of that realization.
Right.
We just detailed how the diverse visual and chemical senses of animals actively shaped the natural environment over millions of years. But today, humanity is rapidly engineering a vast artificial technological world.
Based entirely on our own senses.
Right. We are building it based entirely on our own narrow, trichromatic, forward-facing, relatively deaf, and smell-blind Umwelt.
Which is pretty terrifying when you think about it.
It is. If we remain ignorant of the sensory realities of the wildlife trying to survive alongside us, what invisible walls, chaotic noise, or blinding light pollution are we accidentally forcing into their Umwelten? Are we inadvertently paving over an immense world simply because our biology lacks the hardware to perceive it?
That is a brilliant, necessary, and frankly chilling question to walk away with. It permanently alters how you view a reflective glass office building, a chemical lawn fertilizer, or even just a humming street lamp.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into an immense world. The next time you step outside, remember the mansion. Take a moment to imagine the garden through a completely different window. Catch you next time.